Out of the 14 NFL teams that ended up making the playoffs in this 2021 season, the team that possibly has the worst and most confusing resume for the year is the Chicago Bears. An incredible start led them to a 5-1 record in their first 6 games. However, after that, an 11-week stretch saw them lose 7 out of their 10 games, including the finale against the Green Bay Packers at home. It never seemed like the quarterback situation in Chicago was ever settled, as they went from Mitchell Trubisky to Nick Foles, and then after Nick Foles wasn't playing well, they went back to Mitchell Trubisky. And the Bears didn't really necessarily earn their playoff spot either. They kind of just coasted away towards the playoff spot and barely squeaked in due to the fact that the Cardinals lost their chance at the wild card spot. The New Orleans Saints, on the other hand, won 9 of their 11 games in that same 11-week stretch, and the only 2 games that they lost were the Philadelphia Eagles, led by rookie quarterback Jalen Hurts, who was making his first start, and Patrick Mahomes' Chiefs, who were possibly the best team in the NFL. However, I think due to the fact that Drew Brees has always in his career kind of choked in the playoffs, and this is the kind of year where literally anything can happen, including an 8-8 team taking down a possible Super Bowl contender. Now, many of you who think I sound like I'm a complete idiot right now for picking the Bears to beat the Saints this weekend are probably pointing to the fact that the Saints actually beat the Bears earlier in this season 26-23 in overtime. Alvin Kamara had an incredible game with 96 receiving yards as well as about 60 yards on the ground, and he was really the only main factor on the offensive side of the ball due to Michael Thomas being out with injury. However, if you look back at that game, that was still a game in which Nick Foles was the starting quarterback for the Chicago Bears at that point. David Montgomery had yet to start on his role as one of the better running backs over the past half of the season, and the Chicago offense was just out of sync pretty much the whole game. A lot of their offensive linemen came into the game already injured, and throughout the game, a couple of the guys got injured as well. So I think comparing this right now, the situation right now between the two teams and when they played each other, is pretty much nowhere close to being similar. Now, over the entire year, David Montgomery actually finished 5th in terms of total yards from scrimmage. In fact, I think he's probably the most snubbed running back from the Pro Bowl ballot, but that's just my opinion. However, the main damage that David Montgomery has done has been throughout the past half of the season. He's averaged over 100 yards per game through both the receiving and ground game, and he's just been a constant threat for a team that can't really ever seem to get a lot of threats going at once. One of the biggest speed threats, not only on this team, but in the entire league, that can't ever seem to get going for this team is Darnell Mooney. In the game earlier against the Saints, Darnell Mooney had 69 yards, including a 50-yard bomb that set up a touchdown later in the drive, and another touchdown to go along with it in the second half. However, as Bears and many fantasy owners know, the game that Darnell Mooney goes for about 70 receiving yards with a touchdown comes few and far between, as this team really fails to get him into the offense efficiently, and it never really seemed like he was able to get his foot in the ground in terms of being an elite threat within this offense. However, Darnell Mooney is going into the playoffs with an 100-yard game in his finale against the Green Bay Packers, and if he's able to carry that same kind of performance into this game against the Saints, in which the crowd will not be a factor for this Bears offense, and they should be able to, get their play calls in efficiently, then I think Darnell Mooney is set for a big day. Now, Darnell Mooney actually did end up landing on the practice injury report for the past couple of practices for the Bears, as well as wide receiver Allen Robinson. However, the other main target who I would think would really relish increasing his role within this team is wide receiver Anthony Miller. He also had a really big day against the New Orleans Saints, and it seemed like every time the Saints were in man coverage against Anthony Miller, wherever he was lining up, it seemed that they really could not defend him with any of their corners, and I'm sure he would really love to get more into this offense than he has been as of late. Now, the bread and butter of the Chicago Bears team is obviously the defensive side of the ball, and it's a defense over the past few weeks who has been very injury-riddled. Guys like Buster Screen, Akeem Hicks, Jalen Johnson, all guys who have been on the injury report for a game over the past few weeks. However, if this defense ends up going into the game healthy, then that should give them that advantage, because they are a team that loves to get after the quarterback. They've got a lot of guys who are able to, get sacks on a non-mobile quarterback like Drew Brees. When you've got guys like Khalil Mack, Akeem Hicks, even though Robert Quinn has had a very down year, especially given his expectations with his contract, he still is an elite threat on that edge and is always a threat to get after your quarterback within a couple of seconds. Now, when it comes to defending Alvin Kamara, I understand that Alvin Kamara had one of his best games in his career against the Chicago Bears a few weeks ago. However, I think when something like that happens against the Bears, it gives them film on what they should do next time against Alvin Kamara in terms of trying to stop him. And I think they've learned from their mistakes in terms of some plays they would rely on Khalil Mack to be playing man coverage, or they just would leave Alvin Kamara in general and not focus on him. Even though Michael Thomas is going to be around for this game, I don't necessarily think Michael Thomas is going to be the biggest threat due to the fact that he's been out a majority of the season and he might not have his game legs under him, especially given the fact that they're in the playoffs now and everything gets ramped up even more. There's a chance that Michael Thomas doesn't really see the field a whole lot, and with that in mind, the Bears will be able to key in on Alvin Kamara a lot easier. Off of just how purely talented and gifted Alvin Kamara is, just going into the game, I would almost guarantee he's going to have 100 yards from scrimmage in the game. However, the thing that they're going to have to limit is they can't let Alvin Kamara have 2 or 3 splash plays throughout the game that basically set up a field goal or set up a touchdown drive. They can't have those plays where Alvin Kamara goes off for about 40 yards and sets up the Saints in easy scoring position. However, the main advantage that this team has in terms of how they can play defense compared to how the Saints can play defense, the Bears are going to be able to key in on Drew Brees and get after him pretty much all game. They did a really good job in their game earlier this year in terms of getting after Drew Brees very quickly on third down and long situations and making him take check down routes that have no chance of getting first downs. If they're able to limit what the New Orleans Saints and Alvin Kamara are able to do on the early first and second downs, they're able to limit the Saints to maybe 4 to 5 yards on those given plays and make them get into third and medium, third and long situations, then the Bears are going to be able to tee off on Drew Brees all game and possibly get him to fumble or throw an interception. And with guys in the back end like Kyle Fuller, Eddie Jackson, Tashawn Gibson, and if Buster Skrine and Jalen Johnson play them as well, they have a lot of guys who are very apt at getting after the ball in the air and even taking it for 6 in many cases. Not to mention in the special teams games, I know that the New Orleans Saints are actually really good on special teams. However, they don't have a Hall of Fame caliber kick and punt returner like the Chicago Bears do in Cordarrelle Patterson. They've possibly had the best 2 punt and kick return specialists in NFL history with both Devin Hester and Cordarrelle Patterson. And it literally only takes 1 kick return with Cordarrelle Patterson to completely turn the tide of the game, or 1 punt return that sets up a touchdown, or whatever he ends up doing. It really only takes 1 play for Cordarrelle Patterson to put his ultimate stamp on the game. And if it does happen, the New Orleans Saints could be out to dry. And also, given the fact that the New Orleans Saints might have the worst playoff luck in the last 5 years than any other team has had in their whole franchise history, I think it's just due for the New Orleans Saints at this time, given the fact that they've had another incredible year and Drew Brees is trying to get that last championship before he retires. I think it's just kind of what's going to be expected this year is the Saints have some sort of disappointing week 1 playoff loss and they get sent home. And I honestly couldn't think of another team that would be better suited to do it than the Chicago Bears, especially given the fact that they're an 8-8 team that nobody even saw going into the playoffs. Even after they had a 5-1 start, people didn't believe that they would be a playoff team. And sitting at 8-8 and having one of the worst second half stretches any playoff team has ever had, I don't think there's any team that should beat the Saints easier than the Chicago Bears can. With all that being said, that's going to be the video for me. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you did, make sure you leave a like. If you didn't, make sure you leave a dislike. Any feedback from you all at this point is much appreciated. If you are a Bears, Saints, or NFL fan in general, make sure you let me know how you felt about the video in the comments section down below. And if you're new around here, make sure you hit subscribe. If you're one of my returning 63, I believe, subscribers, I appreciate you so much. And I'll see you in the next video. Peace.